Hi, I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Hi, everyone. Today I'm speaking with Derek Sham. Derek is the CEO of Cosm Medical, and today we're talking about pelvic floor disorder. Do you know what it is? Do you know what your risks are? And changing the standard of care and how his grandmother inspired him to do all of this. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Derek. It's so good to see you.
Great to meet you, Tamara.
Okay, so I'm not going to lie, Derek, when my producer, Kalia, said, okay, so, there's this CEO, Derek Sham, and, it's about, pelvic floor. And I said, sorry, what? A guy is going to teach me about my pelvic floor? How? And then I went to your website.
Yeah.
And then I started reading. And then I started clicking on the links on your website. And I learned more about my own pelvic floor and pelvic floor disorder and the potential for things than I have ever known in my life. This is fascinating.
Thanks. Yeah, it's part of one of the things that kind of astonished me, and it's been interesting, kind of having a lot of friends that are having babies nowadays. They all come up to me and go, "Oh my God, now I understand what you're doing," and having had that exposure, and it's, I feel quite privileged to have like a mission to work towards that, is an impact and kind of leverages kind of my background and what I've done so far in my career. So,
yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. So you are an engineer by trade, I guess.
Yeah.
And you went through something with your grandma and her health. Why don't you? That's probably a good place to start, is with your
Sure.
grandma. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So my background is I'm a medical device engineer. I've built technologies in cardiology, kind of how your heart works, GI, swallowing disorders, things coming from down below. And also I spent a decade at Labrie Medical, a world-leading gold standard diagnostic urology company that built the most utilized urodynamic system in the world. It's a way to measure how your bladder and urethra works, to see kind of how things are functioning down below for urinary incontinence. So for males, it's typically prostate issues, the inability to go to washroom. And for females, it's around incontinence, or the inability to hold it in. And for me, I was one day, sitting in a boardroom meeting, and my mom's calling me incessantly on my phone, and I'm, in my pocket, end call. And, as soon as I get out of the meeting, I call mom, like, what's going on? She's like, look, I'm at grandma's place. She's lying on the ground. She's in pain. She can't get up. There's this thing coming out of her vagina. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor, right, mom? And I'm like, what does it look like? And she's like, oh, it looks kind of a little bit like an egg. I'm like, okay, so it's most likely prolapse. Get her to put it back in, sit down, and get her referred to a urogyne. Now, fast forward later, she failed multiple rounds of conservative therapy, ended up getting an infection down below, and multiple surgeries later put into a home. And for me, the last company I worked for in urological diagnostics, a year later, was successfully exited. And, I knew some of the best doctors in the world. Really couldn't get her the care I thought she deserved. And hence, when my last company got sold that I worked for, I decided to kind of roll over the capital and see if I can make an impact in women's health. And, you could say, be inspired by my grandma's health condition to make a real impact in the world.
So this is something that we don't really talk about. Men don't talk about, having trouble urinating because of their prostate. That's not, conversations that we have around the dinner table.
No.
And the same goes for women.
Yeah.
And their pelvic floor and, the prolapse is what you were talking about, or, pelvic floor disorder. We don't talk about those things except to maybe joke, right? Like, oh yeah, every time I sneeze, I pee a little bit, or, every time I laugh, I, wet my pants a bit. Like, it's a joke, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess because we find it embarrassing. I mean, have you found that in your work?
Yeah, and I think that's, for me, that's kind of the fun part about it. It's even the doctors that we work with. I think finding levity in these kind of devastating conditions can actually change things. For instance, I was at the American Urogynecology Society meeting a couple years ago, and they run this fun event that involves karaoke, and a bunch of the doctors were wearing shirts that had "Make Vaginas Great Again" on them, and it's I think you kind of have to kind of embrace it. Now, a famous urologist once told me, he's like, look, the question isn't whether or not your pipes are going to break, it's whether or not your house falls down first. Now, with people living longer, with all the, with the advancements in other fields such as cardiology, neurology, cancer care, as we live older, more pipes are breaking, and we're focused in improving quality of life through that. So, yeah.
So when we're talking about, pelvic organ prolapse.
Yeah.
So, or POP, I saw on your website, right? Yeah. POP, I don't know if you call it that, but so what is that?
Yeah.
What's happening with our body?
What's happening is, as women age, as they experience, pelvic floor trauma, such as childbirth from a car accident and whatnot, tissues tend to stretch or relax. And what happens for women is essentially a hernia of different types of organs. There's 5 different types of prolapse. It can come from your bladder, it can come from the cervix, the rectum. And what happens is a hernia that comes through the vagina. So think of it as things start falling out down below. And instead of for men, hernias happen typically in the abdomen. Instead of it happening through the abdomen, since there's nothing down there for women, it herniates through the vagina. Now, what that causes is it starts with a bit of discomfort. And then if untreated, because it gets worse over time, it goes towards debilitating discomfort in that, with a late stage prolapse, it's very difficult for women to walk without pain or do anything really in their lives.
So we're in a situation now, right across the country where millions of Canadians don't have access to, a family doctor or... And I mean, I know from, people that I know personally, the older we get, we don't maybe go to the doctor as often. We sure haven't gone in the last couple of years because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So is this the type of thing, the longer you leave it, the worse it gets?
Yeah, absolutely. It's degenerative. So think of it as, in a cruder sense, if you... part of what we're building is, you could call it a custom sports bra for the vagina. Now, even with breasts, if you don't support them properly, they tend to sag more over time. And that will happen also to pelvic organs, right? And it gets worse over time. Now, the only instance where it does get better is typically postpartum. So most actually postpartum women experience some stage of prolapse at the beginning, but their bodies tend to heal afterwards and everything kind of uplifts and whatnot. And so there's definitely, it depends on the stage of life a woman is in. And, if you look at pelvic floor disorders now for women, now that's including pelvic organ prolapse, urinary and fecal incontinence. It happens to half of all women by the time they reach 80. And about 1 1/4 of any adult women experience some sort of symptoms, whether that's incontinence, when they're, let's say, stress incontinence when they laugh, when they go exercise, or pelvic organ prolapse. When they exercise, they feel something doesn't feel right down there. That happens to 1/4 of adult women right now. And it's, kind of similar to prostate issues in men. For guys, prostate issues means we can't go to the washroom, we don't pee properly, and prostate issues will happen to half of all men in our lifetime. The difference is there's been, you could say, over $1 billion spent in marketing to normalize erectile dysfunction as a result of Viagra. There is Movember, Prostate Awareness Month. There's a gigantic campaign that's changed this the stigma around men's health, and to the point where I have some friends that have come up to me. They're like, have you ever tried Viagra for fun or for medical reasons? And what's your thoughts on it? I give them my personal opinion, and we kind of have a couple jokes about it, because it's a part of, I think, being adult about your health and being able to kind of laugh about it, but also, embrace conservative therapy, which is where I think medicine needs to go to be, as we evolve as a system.
So let's talk about, so your company is COSM.
Yeah.
COSM. And you were saying, just before we started, it includes your grandma's initials in there, which is sweet. But also, it's like, so explain what that means, COSM. What is the company doing? You have, what is it that you have or that you've developed that will help?
So we just completed our first clinical study here in Toronto. We fit 8 women with our additive manufacturing or 3D printed devices, and demonstrated that a customized device for women does help. Now, COSM, my grandma's initials are CSM. COSM kind of stands for, I was a big fan of Carl Sagan and A Pale Blue Dot growing up. So what it stands for is we're developing a microcosm of technology to shift the macrocosm of women's health. And our technology platform can be related to what's currently available for people with hearing problems in custom hearing, people with dental issues, i.e. Invisalign and custom dental, and also, foot pain and custom orthotics, in that we're developing gynothotics, or the world's first patient-specific pessary. Now, what a pessary is actually one of the oldest documented medical devices. It dates back over 2,000 years of use from the Egyptians. So there's literally papyrus drawings and hieroglyphics with women hanging upside down and people putting things in their vagina to support it. And pessaries are essentially supportive devices that go inside of the vagina to put organs back in place. So to normalize function, whether that's removing pain and discomfort, or lowering the incidences of incontinence. Now, throughout history, right? Pessaries date back a few thousand years, literally started with putting rocks up there, like very crude stuff. In the Middle Ages, they were doing pomegranates soaked in wine, linen soaked in wax. In the 20th century, with the advent of medical grade silicone, they became over 100 different shapes and sizes of silicone devices that are fit through trial and error. So the current gold standard care practice for conservative therapy for pelvic organ prolapse involves finger measurements. So literally a doctor going like this and taking 9 measurements called the POP-Q. And then they go, I think you're a ring size 3. Puts one in, patient walks around for 10 minutes. If it's uncomfortable, if it falls out, they try another one over and over again.
That sounds absolutely horrendous.
Yeah,
to go through that as a woman patient, as someone who owns a vagina, that sounds like an absolute nightmare for me. You know what I mean? Just like emotionally and physically and just like all of it, right? Like you're already dealing with a medical issue, and then that sounds like anyone listening with a vagina will agree with me. It sounds very intense.
Oh yeah. And wow. You can imagine how intense the originating issue is for women to want to go through this,
Yes.
to solve their problem. Like
Yes.
it literally disrupts, it changes their life, right? And, our goal is essentially to create custom devices, leveraging the latest technologies to prevent this issue from getting worse, and eventually potentially becoming a therapeutic. So what we've really developed is a tech platform, what we call digital gynecology, to personalize care. What that involves is a novel diagnostic system to kind of mold and scan the female pelvic floor. We've been working with the lab out at Western University here in London, Ontario. It's actually a world-leading lab where technologies for 3D printing and CT scanning were invented. I had no idea until I kind of, worked through this. So we're developing a new way to mold and scan the female pelvic floor. We have AI-driven cloud software to analyze the images, predict designs, and then we're working with world leaders in 3D printing to manufacture gynethotics. It's been an exciting journey. We recently closed some funding, and we anticipate our first Health Canada and FDA approval by end of next year.
That's incredible. And I can tell how excited you are about it, right? It's like a long time coming, right? It feels
Absolutely.
Feels like, centuries.
Yeah.
It's taken a
totally.
long time to get to this place.
Yeah.
Wow. It's really, so gynethotics. That's gynethotics.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that, like you mentioned 3D printing. I remember when 3D printing was sort of like, it was new, and it feels like it wasn't very long ago, and it was so expensive. And now it feels like it's just opened up more, right? And do you feel like moving forward, now that we have 3D printing and all these things that we know and all the things that you just mentioned, like AI and all these things, do you feel like it will open up a whole new world for more than just pelvic floor, disorders? Or I guess it has the potential to change so much.
Totally. I think we live in a new world now, right? Like it's the world is going towards personalization, and that is not only just the 3D printing, but also the AI stuff. Being able to like personalize things and predict what works, what doesn't, centralizing data. I would say the ambition of our tech platform would only be possible right now with the advancements of industrial 3D printing, cloud software and e-commerce to streamline workflows, AI to predict the designs, and also point of care ultrasound, which makes our technology economically viable so that we can scale towards better adoption and better access for women. Right now, as a result of COVID, there's literally urogynecologists with a 3-year wait list. So women with these conditions are waiting upwards of 3 years to get it treated, which is it puts extra fire underneath me and my team to get things forward. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I have a lot more questions for you, but before we do that, we like to give back on our podcast. So we asked our guests to choose a Canadian nonprofit organization who we will give $500 to in thanks for you being here. And you chose St. Patrick's Home of Ottawa Foundation, who work with their community and residents to support quality, person-centered care. I'm going to guess that it's a special place for you for some reason.
Yeah, it's a special place for me. It's, I'm a first-generation immigrant, moved to Canada when I was 6, like many new immigrants. My parents struggled for the first couple of years, and the reason why I'm so close to my grandma was because she took care of me for the first few years that I lived here in Canada. And, the St. John's Home was where she spent the last few years of her life. And, the care there, the staff, they were spectacular. So I wanted to give back to them.
Well, that's very kind of you. And they will be getting $500 in your name for you being here with us. So thank you very much for choosing them.
No, thank you.
So you said that you Actually, let me ask you about your grandmother. What do you think she would think about this now? That like how far you've come and what you've done? Like, could you ever, fantasize about sometimes we dream about the people that are gone and telling them something or sharing something with them. You must think about what that conversation would be like.
Yeah. I actually had the opportunity to have that conversation with her because I actually launched COSM in 2017. I was doing it by myself, invested my own capital into it, kind of started to get the ball rolling. It was an interesting Christmas conversation in that, we were kind of talking. I was explaining the stuff to her. My mom was half translating. We were kind of getting into it. And you could tell that I'm an engineer, so I tend to go full tech on things. And she literally turned around and she looked at me and she's like, Derek, are you happy? And I'm like, oh my God. For me, that helps to ground me and my engineering business brain around what really matters in life and, bringing joy. And I find myself in an amazing leadership position where I am leading, badass female leaders, head of engineering, head of research, head of clinical and regulatory that are, I get to coach amazing women to achieve, our overall impact mission, which is to improve 1 million lives by 2030. So it's been an amazing journey and, grounded in, maintaining happiness on this path.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. She sounds like an incredible person. So how lucky that you get to continue this work. So you say by 2030, 1 million?
Yeah, 2030.
Okay.
Million, yeah.
So 7.5 years. So how, which seems like a long time, but it's really not.
No,
so
it's not. Yeah.
What are the next steps, Derek? Like what happens next?
Yeah. So for us, we have, we've met with Health Canada, we've met with the FDA, we have a clear path to market for our version 1 next year. As we expand forward, the drive is towards, driving commercial success, and the launch of our product by end of next year. In parallel to that, we are feeding our AI. We're collaborating with world leaders in South America, US, and Canada to build the world's largest data set around this issue because AI needs data. So we're feeding our AI. We're expanding our clinical study, our initial one of N of 8 women to N of 100 women here in Ontario to, better define kind of our value proposition and evolve our technology. And we're also, investing in scaling our R&D team to building a scalable, high quality diagnostic system. One of the craziest things about this field, in my mind is that, there isn't urogynecology was accredited as a medical subspecialty in 2011. So it's really a fairly nascent or new field of medicine. That's a combination of urology, gynecology, and colorectal. It's because they play with the part in between all those things. But it is also the only surgical subspecialty where the standard of care before surgery is finger measurements.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't, to me, that doesn't really make sense in our modern day society. And it is also the field where there's been over 100,000 lawsuits because of surgical complications associated with mesh. If people watching this want to learn more, there's a Netflix documentary called The Bleeding Edge. You can YouTube 60 minutes expose on mesh, and you can kind of learn all about it. And because of all these lawsuits, the FDA actually banned transvaginal mesh for prolapse repair. And because of how common and prevalent these issues are, after that ban, the market for the mesh is now growing at a 15% year over year growth for other surgeries. And that's because there's no other options for women, really, right? So one of the crazy stats, we talk about, hey, this affects half of all women within their lifetime, is that 20% of all women in their lifetime will get pelvic floor surgery. Whether that's a hysterectomy, colpocliosis, some sort of wall repair, 1 in 5 women get surgery down there. Nobody talks about it.
Nobody talks about it. And it's interesting, Derek, because sitting here listening to you talk about all of these things, I guess deep down inside, I don't find it that shocking, because we do know that women who go to the hospital, the doctor, complaining of pain or this or that, and I've had the experience myself, we're not taken seriously, or not as seriously as men who go in and have, complaints about something. And I mean, it's a well-documented topic, and there's lots of proof of it. And you just have to talk to women, right? When we complain about pain, especially female pain, if you will.
Totally.
We're usually told, oh, you need to lose weight, or you need to eat more fiber, or you need to, exercise more, or whatever it might be, right? These silly things. So you're dealing, or you're helping, 51% of the world, right, is female. Yep. And you're saying that 20% of them are going to have this happen. And if all those women make it to 80, 50% of them are going to have a pelvic floor disorder.
Yeah, so it's 1 in 4 women will potentially at one time need what we're doing. And that's the craziest part, is that, when I go talk to the investors in cardiology and neurology, they're like, oh, this is a niche market. But this is 1 in 4.
It's not a niche market. All
people will be affected. Like, how is that? For us, prior to our call, you probably never heard of a PES before, but over 10 million are sold annually globally per year.
No.
So there's like tens of millions of women wearing these things.
It's very niche, Derek. It's very niche.
It's very niche, but it's...
This is fascinating because, so many women I know, we have these conversations all the time, right? About how this has happened or this. And then we go into the doctor and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. This happens. This is what happens when you get older. And whether it be, our pelvic floor or, menopause or perimenopause or whatever it might be. And most women I know who have had cancer have all been, it's the same situation, right? We go into the doctor, we give our, concerns and some of our experiences, and we're brushed off a lot. So to talk to you, and I guess that's why when, I started this conversation and I said, here I am talking to a man, I'm learning about my pelvic floor more than I've learned from anyone, because I think as women, we are a little bit, not suspicious, but we're cautious when talking to someone that isn't female about female problems, right? Like, how could you possibly know, right?
Oh, yeah, and absolutely.
This conversation has been an eye-opener for me, Derek. And
yeah.
I mean, you've taught me a lot of things that I didn't know. And I'll tell you, your website and all the links you have on there are... and you do, one of the links gives symptoms, so what your risk is of having a pelvic floor disorder. Because I thought, oh, well, I had a C-section, so it can't happen to me. That's not true.
That's not true. Yeah, that's not true. The likelihood of pelvic floor disorder still goes up with a C-section. Our website, our core value mandates include improving access and education while being science first. So that's why we heavily invest in clinical studies. We're, driving that part forward because, in the world of AI, without good data, garbage in, garbage out. And for us, we are excited to be partnering. If anybody wants to learn more, feel free to visit our website at cosm.care, cosm.care. There's an option to sign up if you're a patient. Feel free to let us know your issues. If I can help in any way, I personally do respond to patient messages. We get, without any advertisement, at least 2 patients a week signing up. And, I do my best to talk with patients, because that keeps me grounded in our mission to improving the lives of 1 million women by 2030.
I love it. I love it, Derek. Okay, so you just mentioned your website. It's cosm.care, that's COSM. And you're also on Twitter, which is Cosm Medical. So Twitter is Cosm Medical. Your website is cosm.care. Thank you so much for sharing all this information. And, I've learned a lot. And your website, I still have it up on my screen because I'll be combing through more of it because there's a lot of information there. Thanks. Thanks so much, Derek. Really great conversation.
No, thank you, Tamara. Great chatting with you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Be sure to subscribe so you can join us every Tuesday for another conversation. You can also check out our website, telus.com/podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at TELUS Talks.